Kia ora koutou. We'll welcome you to this seminar, which is being hosted by the Integral Ecology Committee of the Ecology, Justice and Peace Commission of the Archdiocese of Wellington. We were planning a number of activities for Lent, and Omicron once again got in the way of some of our plans. So this is one of our ways that we hope to share some of the insights and experience of the Integral Ecology Committee. We've got two presenters this evening, well, three presenters, two presentations. So Pā Gerard Burns will share with us briefly about some reflections on Lent and measuring our carbon footprint and why that might be part of our Lenten practice. And then Estelle Henrys and Stuart Henrys will share a presentation they have shared in some other forums, but on the tools that are available to do that. I'm standing in for Helene Doyle, who was to be the welcomer, but unfortunately has been diagnosed with COVID today and isn't well enough to join us. So just to start off with, we've got a short reflection as an opening. Oh, sorry. As an opening prayer. Oh, hang on, try that again. We just tried before with the music playing. My apologies if the music doesn't come through clearly. We'll just still use it as the meditation, but in silence. So it's about 2.5 minutes long. So we remind ourselves that we're in the presence of God. We thank God for this season of Lent, for the time, the opportunity to turn back to God and to reconsider actions in our lives that affect our neighbours. Thank you for sharing that. We'll now ask Father Monsignor Gerard Burns, Pā Gerard, to speak to us to share some opening thoughts about Lent and our carbon footprint.
Kia ora Lisa and kia ora tātou. Hello everyone. After watching that little, participating in that little reflection, I think I should have started in a different place. The question, who is my neighbour? Famous question. I think someone else has asked it before me. But looking at the neighbour that is our brothers and sisters, our fellow human beings, but also all of creation and the planet Earth, they too are our neighbours, part of our whānau. So we'll come back to that. But I thought I'd start with the first paragraph of the Pope's message for Lent. So Lisa, could you put that up on the screen for us? Can someone who can see the whole screen please read it?
I can see it all.
Yeah.
You want me to read it?
Please.
Okay. So this is Pope Francis's message for Lent 2022. Lent is a favourable time for personal and community renewal, as it leads us to the Paschal mystery of the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. For our Lenten journey in 2022, we will do well to reflect on St. Paul's exhortation to the Galatians. Let us not grow tired of doing good, for in due time we shall reap our harvest. If we do not give up, so then, while we have the opportunity, the kairos time, let us do good to all. Galatians 6:9-10.
Thank you. So the message goes on to look at those three classic ways of utilising or making Lent fruitful: prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. So those are the three things there. And in that paragraph 2, there's a little, we have there on the screen a little summary. So to keep up the praying, let us not grow tired of uprooting evil from our lives. And I think that's particularly the thing that I'd focus on. When we do our analysis of what's happening around the world, climate change is more and more in our face and part of our experience, and certainly part of the experience of many vulnerable people. So the production of that, the causes of that, whether they be intended or unintended, we can say are evil. So to uproot evil from our lives, and that's why we fast. It's not just to lose weight or to make ourselves feel good, but to activate ourselves, have a deeper sense of suffering and going without, so that we're actually more deeply and more strongly motivated to do good. And so the whole impact of our carbon footprint, for instance, how that can damage our world in all sorts of ways and damage our neighbours. If we're working on that, that's part of a good Lent, part of uprooting evil from our lives. And not to get tired of doing that. I think one of the great challenges of any good work, in any work where often we feel defeated or we don't immediately see the fruits of our good work in inverted commas, is getting tired, giving up, saying, oh, what does it matter? What does my little effort matter? So our little efforts matter, but so does the networking and the organising for change. So that's the last part. Let us not grow tired of doing good for our neighbours. And our neighbours, as I said, is the whole planet. So that's why I think it's a very good thing. It's an important thing, not a good thing. It's an important thing to reflect on and act on what we're taking up, particularly today. It fits in perfectly with Lent. Yes, we are preparing to celebrate the death and resurrection of Jesus, the Paschal mystery, but that's lived in every moment, in every suffering and death that's going on at the moment, whether it's the war in Ukraine or wars or hunger in other places, but also in the resurrections, the new life, the goodness that's happening around the world. So these actions of Lent help us to hopefully see more clearly and act more fruitfully. Kia ora tātou.
Kia ora, thank you very much, Pā Gerard. Really appreciate you opening our gathering with us. We're just going to give people an opportunity just to touch base with each other very briefly. It's only for 5 minutes. Estelle will open up some breakout rooms, and we just ask you to choose a breakout room and go into it. Thank you for that brief time of sharing. Can we hand over now to Estelle and Stuart to give our main presentation?
Stuart, shall I let you start?
Yeah, I hope that screen is sharing. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So kia ora. Yeah, I'm Stuart Henrys, and I'm going to spend a bit of time with Estelle to share this session about measuring our carbon footprint. A little bit about myself. I'm far too old, grew up in Auckland, now live in Wellington, and I work at GNS Science. It's a CRI, and we do earthquakes, volcanoes stuff. Kia ora.
I'll just say that what motivated us was 2 Lents ago actually to take our carbon footprint in the month of February, and we've done it for 1 month last year and this year. What motivated me was people talked a lot about carbon footprint, and I really didn't have a clue what really that meant. So we decided to look into it, and so Stuart will just explain a little bit about what a carbon footprint is.
All right, this is the outline of presentation. So we have some definitions, and I'll explain carbon footprint. We will use, Estelle and I use this Toitu household calculator, and we'll show some examples of that. We have some results from February and some annual results, and so it's interesting, and we can discuss that later. And then I'll talk about what is carbon offsetting, and we'll end with some take-home messages. Right, okay, get right into it. So a carbon footprint. Your carbon footprint is the sum of all your emissions of CO2, carbon dioxide, and other greenhouse gases that you that are as a result of all the activities that you can do in a given time frame. And usually the footprint is calculated over a period of a year. So that's the usual way the carbon footprint is kind of described. And why should you calculate your carbon footprint? So it's a very powerful tool to understand the impact of your personal behavior, and especially your behavior on global warming. And most people are pretty shocked when they see the amount of CO2 their activities create. So this is a useful way to compare your footprint with other people and different activities and the effects of the carbon footprint on those. Right, some more definitions. Carbon dioxide, CO2, that makes up the majority of the greenhouse gas emissions that are generated by human beings on the planet. And there are small amounts of other gases, greenhouse gases, methane and nitrous oxide, that are emitted. And these gases are released directly or indirectly as a result of our activities. So in order to calculate just one number, given all of these different gases, we use the CO2e, carbon dioxide equivalent. So that's a standard unit for measurement, again, so that we can compare different carbon footprints need to be standardized. And so this is the unit of measurement that people use. So the idea is to express each of those different greenhouse gas emissions in terms of the amount of CO2 that would create the same amount of warming. And that way a carbon footprint consists of a lot of different greenhouse gases and can be expressed as a single number. So in the calculators and we'll see a calculator in a minute. All of the under the hood stuff is done for you. So you only need to present a small amount of data and the CO2 equivalent is calculated for you. So I'm going to try and, how am I going to do this? I'm going to try and show a web page. So we'll see if this works. I'll bring that
So we
across.
chose Toitu because it's a New Zealand calculator and it's also very user-friendly. So this is the homepage of Toitu, and if you scroll down you'll see calculators and you choose household calculator. And this is what it looks like. So first of all, you need to choose the year, and you can see it's 2022 and the period was February. And for us, we just have the 2 adults in our household. And this one is just from the website, so it's got 1 child as well. And the calculator does 3 lots of calculations: home energy and travel and household waste. So those are the 3 main things that it calculates. And if you want to look at what you need to, what data you need to collect, say for home energy, you just click on the little cross.
Yeah, sorry, Estelle, here we go.
Yep. So you just click on the little cross that was there and it opens up, and this is the information you have to collect for your home energy. It's the easiest part of the calculator, and all you need to do is make sure you have access to all your bills that you pay, and the information on your energy bills are what you fill in at the end of the month. So if your energy bill goes for 1 month, you just take that amount of information. And so this is ours, and you can see it's changed at the top to 2 adults and no children, because our children are grown up and left home. And for home energy for the month of February, we had 264 kilowatt hours, and that immediately calculated that that was 27 kilograms of CO2 emissions. And then we have gas as well. So I entered the gas and that ended up to be 32 kilograms. So our total home energy was 59. You can see that in the top and the little bar there. So that was all we needed to do. We don't have LPG or solid fuels, but if you did, you would fill them in for the month. Now, the next thing we had to do was travel. And the thing that you need to remember is when you decide you're going to do this and start it, the first thing you have to do is read your odometer on your vehicle. And just write that down in a little notebook, because at the end of the month, or if you decide to do it for a whole year, you will look at your odometer again and subtract the amount that you started with. So you need to know to do that for travel, and you also need to make a note of any bus trips you take, any public transport, bus, train, whether you take a taxi, a ferry, and you add that to this travel data. So, and also the bus trips you take, you need to kind of calculate approximately the kilometres that you travelled in the bus. It doesn't have to be exact. You can stab a guess at that. So for our travel for the month of February, you can see we've chosen that we've got a small car and it's got the CCs, so you can move it down and choose the kind of vehicle you've got. and then you type in the kilometres that you travelled, and we travelled 767 kilometres. The public transport, we used the city bus a few times each, and that came to about 20 kilometres. And what else did we do, Stuart? We didn't do any accommodation. We didn't go to any other place. But if you go to an accommodation, you choose the one, whether it's motel, hotel, whether it's a dock hut, and it has a carbon and how long you stayed. And then it will calculate your CO2 emissions for that. So for our travel, we came to a total of 137 CO2 emissions. You can see the little bar there. And the next thing is your waste. Now, the way I found easiest to do the waste was it's what you're calculating with your waste is what you put in the landfill. So every time I took our kitchen rubbish bin and our rubbish bag from the kitchen cupboard and the bathrooms, I just weighed them on my scales, my bathroom scales, just weighed that bag and then put it outside. And so I added those up for the month. So I take it out to the main bin about once a week. So just weighed that and then added up the 4 different weights and came to a weight for our waste. And then it asks you if you do recycling and if you compost, and you choose always or sometimes or never for that. And our rubbish only came to 1 kilogram of CO2 emissions. So here on the left-hand side, it's just showing you in the form of a pie chart. And this, the calculator does this for you. This was for the month of February. You can see that 69% of our CO2 emissions was from travel. The tiniest bit was from waste, which is kind of a bit surprising, possibly. And home energy was 30%. And our total CO2 emissions for the whole month was 198. On the right-hand side is the New Zealand average for the same household makeup. And you can see that the New Zealand average was a total of 612. So we kind of could pat ourselves on the back for that. Part of it, the waste thing, is that we recycle a lot and we try not to buy things with a lot of packaging. The travel, we have been lucky because my husband carpools to his work, and now he's working from home. And I like to walk, so I try and walk to work as much as I can. So that was our CO2 emissions for February.
Okay, so a little bit more information. If we use that calculator and kind of assume we do a little bit of extra travel. So our travel was pretty low for the month of February, and you can see there, that's the same numbers that were on the pie chart before. We're well below the New Zealand average. But if we throw in 1 flight to Christchurch return for both of us, you can see that travel starts to impact the CO2 equivalent. And if we further go and visit our son and partner in Adelaide, just 1 flight to and back return, then our emissions then become quite large. So you can see that travel very quickly just for 1 month, really is the greatest contributor for us to CO2 emissions, which is staggering. However, so that would be, if we calculated for the month of February and we said that was our average for the, if that was an average month, then we multiply that by 12, then our emissions for a year would be this number. And then New Zealand average is another big number, and we're well below that. And so let's then play the same game and say, well, if we did a flight to Christchurch, okay,
just one a year.
One a year, that would be significant, but manageable. We could probably live with that. And if we do one flight to Adelaide in the whole year, we're actually still tracking beneath the New Zealand average. We're not great in terms of, you know, living with ourselves and trying to aim for a target of something close to 2,000 kilograms CO2 equivalent per year. Now, if we were to go to Europe, one trip a year, then you can see that would that really is staggering. So just one flight, return flight to London, makes an absolute massive contribution to a yearly budget. Now, the way we thought about that was, okay, you probably only want to make that trip once every 10 years, perhaps, or even 5 years. And then you can see that you can start to perhaps plan for a trip and think about how you might offset your carbon emissions during that time, bank them, or offset that particular flight. So we also looked at carbon offsetting, and I have a slide. So carbon offsetting is quite interesting, and we are new to this as well. So we're kind of learning as we go. And it's a way to reduce the impact of your emissions it has on the environment. You can buy carbon credits from environmentally beneficial projects. And so permanent forests and sustainable low energy projects which generate emission reductions that can be measured as carbon credits. Those are the kind of ones, and you want to have some sort of hallmark of credibility that these credits can be purchased and you know that you're actually really offsetting emissions. So on the Toitū calculator itself, you can offset emissions, and they have native forest restoration and renewable energy and a low emissions cooking stoves. So I just tonight, I clicked on that new forest restoration. And for example, there you can see our emissions for February this year and February last year. So in total, that's nearly 700 kilograms of CO2 equivalent. You probably can't see that. But if we were to purchase offsets for native forest restoration project, and this is the project in Marlborough, then it would cost us 68 New Zealand dollars just to offset 2 months of the year, which is pretty tough, actually. I thought that was quite high. So emissions, in my view, need a bit of thought, and I know the government is thinking about that. And we need to find, as a nation, a way to do that better. So I'm going to pass the last slide back to Estelle.
So I'd just like to point out that I don't want to diminish the waste issue, because we all know that plastics and waste are bad for the environment. So even though the waste was a tiny bit of the carbon footprint, it's still something that is really, really important for us to consider and to try and do better at. But the big one is travel. And so, you know, I think there's things that we can do in our parishes, even, you know, encourage carpooling, or just ourselves, if we know we live in the same vicinity as other people, to, you know, offer a lift to things that you're going to together. So the aim is to travel less. And the hard one is that COVID came along, and so people don't feel as safe on public transport. Hopefully, you know, sometime soon, we will be able to turn the corner on that and again feel safe to use public transport, because I do understand people who are not feeling that that's great now. But the thing is to try and take trains and buses and cycle if you can, and walk, and use video conferencing. And we're doing that tonight instead of gathering somewhere. We're all in our different homes, and a lot of workplaces are doing that. Stuart's been up occasionally at 2 o'clock till 7, or midnight till 5, with different people in different countries, whereas he would have gone to a conference in the US. He's online to people in the US. So electric vehicles, we all know they're really, really expensive. Petrol's becoming more expensive. So I guess really encourage policies that give a subsidy, and the people who can afford it to switch to electric vehicles or hybrid vehicles will help our planet a lot. And there's other issues with those, of course, the batteries, but the main message too is throw less away, have insulated homes. And we saw David Ross's lovely garden, plant a garden and share your vegetables that you grow with your neighbours, with family. Go for a stroll, carpool, yeah. So you can see the poster there, the low impact things. I can't quite read that.
Oh, I can read that for you. Light bulbs, recycle, wash clothes in cold water, and those are moderate impacts. Replace car with hybrid. So the high impacts are, live car free, buy green energy.
Avoid one round trip transatlantic flight, and to that last one is quite contentious for us Catholics, have one fewer child.
Okay, so just before I go, I just wanted to go back to the calculator, because I cheated a little bit. I'm just going to go back to the main page, because the first thing it asks you when you access the calculator, it keeps on coming back. I must have this stored. You actually need to, I'm going to log out. You need to log in or register. So if you haven't registered, you need to register. It's free. And then once you register with a username and a password, then you can log in. And then you can start all of this stuff.
And it will save it. So if you get tired and don't do it for that month, have a try again later in the year. It's not really that difficult. And what I found was it actually made me, during that month, it made me be better. I was really aware that I was measuring what we were doing. And so I think if you change some of your habits and look at things a bit more closely and try, then for a month, it could become a habit. And I think that's why it's quite a good idea to kind of think, oh, Lent, I could do this, and then it might become part of your habit. The hard things are that everything for reducing your carbon footprint requires effort. If you're going to walk to work, it requires, you have to get up earlier to get there on time. And so all of these things, but the effort is definitely worth it.
Thank you very much, Estelle and Stuart, for sharing with us again, and for, I know you've done this a couple of times now, helping demystify this for us and opening up as a possible course of action. We're going to go into the breakout rooms again now so that people got a bit of a chance to talk about what we've just heard. And so Estelle will put us in breakout rooms. We're just going to be in there for about 8 minutes, and we just want to suggest that you perhaps share with each other one thing that you heard that you think you might be able to put into practice in this Lent. Thank you. Thanks, Estelle. Cool. So thank you everyone for participating in that and coming back again. Estelle, have you got any last words that you'd like to share before we finish with a final prayer?
I just thought about some other things that we can do. On the Toitū site, the homepage itself, there's a lot of information. There's resources and things that you can read about. So I encourage you to have a look, see there. And also the Laudato Si website. You know, if you're looking just for anything, I recommend to go to that. And as far as recycling and trying to be more sustainable, the Sustainability Trust is a good place to go to. And good luck. I hope we can encourage you, if you do end up doing something for Lent. We have a Laudato Si section on our website, and if you do something, you know, send us a little story. That'd be great.
Well, thank you all very much for taking part and for being part of our first online seminar from the Integral Ecology Committee. We've got a prayer to finish with, and because of the difficulties of sharing with lots of people speaking together on Zoom, I've just assigned the participants. I'm sorry I haven't given you any warning of this, but if you see your name on the screen, can you please read out that page? So we're going to finish with the prayer from the end of Laudato Si, a prayer for the earth. And Father Tom, will you start us off?
All powerful God, you are present in the whole universe and in the smallest of your creatures. You embrace with your tenderness all that exists.
Pour out upon us the power of your love, that we may protect life and beauty. Fill us with peace, that we may live as brothers and sisters, harming no one.
O God of the poor, help us to rescue the abandoned and forgotten of this earth, so precious in your eyes.
Bring healing to our lives, that we may protect the world and not prey on it, that we may sow beauty, not pollution and destruction.
Touch the hearts of those who look only for gain at the expense of the poor and the youth.
Teach us to discover the worth of each thing, to be filled with awe and contemplation, to recognize that we were profoundly united with every creature as we journey towards your infinite light.
We thank you for being with us each day. Encourage us, we pray, in our struggle for justice, love, and peace. Amen.
Amen.
Amen.